Are you afraid that you might get herpes or afraid what it means if you already have it? What it says about how others will actually see you and whether your life will ever feel normal again? I mean, where the hell does all of this fear come from anyway? Hi, I'm Dupree, and I help people to navigate life with herpes. And for those that are new here, welcome. For those that are returning, welcome back. Here at Herpes Wellness, we provide education, support, and empowerment for those living with herpes. And if you don't have herpes and you're just looking for more information, we're here to help you too. Now, each Tuesday, we post content on topics like finding love, navigating intimacy, dealing with disclosure, and more. And today, I'm going to dive into what ignited the stigma around herpes, why it carries the shame it does, how antivirals have been a game changer, and how common it actually is, which is probably more than you think. Okay, so before we get into why people freak out about herpes today, let's get something straight. Herpes isn't new, and the virus has been around for centuries. There are literally records from ancient Greece and Rome describing it. And get this, Roman Emperor Tiberius actually tried to ban public kissing because oral herpes was spreading. Since there were no antivirals or no way to manage it, the best they could do back in the day was to try to limit contact. So the bottom line is that herpes has been a part of human history for a really long time. It's not some new STD. And it's definitely not a result of hookup culture or dating apps or whatever fear-based narrative people like to throw around these days. It's way older than that. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being just a virus and started carrying the stigma it does today. And this didn't just happen by accident. So let's fast forward to 1982 to the single most damning magazine cover that literally changed everything. So on August 2nd, 1982, Time magazine dropped this cover that said it all. Herpes, today's scarlet letter. Like literally right there on the front page in huge red letters that you would typically see on an advertisement for a frigging horror film. The article painted herpes as the price people were paying for, the sexual revolution in the 60s and 70s, right? The article didn't just report on herpes, it literally framed it. And they blamed it on everything that came out of that era, calling it the result of too much sexual freedom and not enough self-restraint. It wasn't presented as a virus that spreads through skin-to-skin contact, right? No. It was presented like it was a public shaming, a consequence, and a label. And from that moment on, people with herpes weren't just seen as people with a virus. They were seen as dirty, reckless, and people who brought it on themselves, like as if they deserved it somehow. Herpes got tied to promiscuity, and that narrative literally stuck. Even now, people still believe it's something that only happens to those who sleep around, and that is so far from the truth. It is absolutely ridiculous. And here's what's always left out. Plenty of people get herpes from one partner. Others contract it from someone who didn't even know that they had it. Some get it from their first time ever having sex, like literally one time, because that's all it takes. But thanks to that fabulous article, thanks a lot, Time magazine, seriously, herpes became and still is the STI that gets all the blame and shame. Never mind the fact that it's common. Never mind the fact that 80% of people who have herpes don't even know they have it and pass it on to their partners unintentionally. Never mind that close to 1 billion people around the world have it. And according to an article published by the World Health Organization in December 2024, one person every 42 seconds is said to acquire a new genital herpes infection. And yet none of that information has changed the narrative. But here's what should have changed it a long time ago. Treatment. Because literally just a few years after that awful and damning headline dropped, the first oral antiviral was approved, which was a total game changer. Now, let's fast forward a few years after that headline blew up. In 1985, the first oral antiviral, Acyclovir, was approved, and that was only 3 years after that awful article dropped. And for the first time, people with herpes finally had options. What did Acyclovir do? 1, it dramatically cut down the frequency of outbreaks. Long-term suppressive therapy with Acyclovir can reduce recurrence of frequent outbreaks by around 70 to 80%. And 2, outbreaks that did happen were shorter and milder, and healing time improved significantly. Then came Valtrex, also known as Valacyclovir, which was approved later in the 1990s and popularized in the early 2000s. Daily use did and continues to do 2 major things. First, it cuts the transmission chances in half. In a study of couples where one partner has HSV2 and the other doesn't, like me and my partner, Valacyclovir reduces genital herpes transmission from 3.6% to 1.9%. That's a 48% reduction, which is huge. Second, it significantly lowered asymptomatic shedding, which is one of the main reasons why herpes gets passed on. Up to 80% of people don't even know they have it, so they end up spreading herpes without even realizing it. One study showed that asymptomatic shedding dropped from about 10.8% of days while taking a placebo to about 2.9% when those same people were given Acyclovir. That's a 71% reduction in asymptomatic shedding. Simply put, antivirals made herpes extremely manageable. They gave people control over symptoms and reduced the chances of spreading it. But what's so crazy is that even after all of this, the narrative never shifted, even knowing that medication cuts transmission and outbreaks way down. So, why are people still so afraid of herpes? Because the stigma hasn't caught up with the truth. Here's what completely blows my mind. We've got the science. We've got the medication. We know that herpes is manageable and extremely common, and yet people still lose their shit when they find out that someone has it. They still think it means something about your worth or your choices, even though everything we've talked about proves otherwise. So the fear really isn't about herpes anymore. It's about the story people have been told and the stigma that comes along with it. And unfortunately, that story keeps getting dragged out and recycled in the media like it's funny. Like in The Hangover, where herpes is a major punchline and one that everyone remembers. Or more recently, the show Beef on Netflix, where they bring it up again. But here's the reality. Close to 1 billion people that we know of worldwide are living with herpes. It could be more because so many people don't get tested and are asymptomatic, right? But when you reduce herpes to a joke, you're basically mocking 1 out of every 6 people on the planet, and that's not funny. It's actually harmful and quite frankly immature and disgusting, if you ask me. And for the people actually living with it, who are already scared, judging themselves, already dealing with rejection and embarrassment, it's damning as hell. People have even thought about taking their own lives because of it. That's what stigma does. It lingers, even when the facts don't support it. It convinces people that having herpes makes them less than. It keeps people silent, scared, and ashamed of something that doesn't even define who they are. Now, that said, I want to end with this. You are not the stigma. Let me say that again. You're not the stigma, and you're not your diagnosis. And if we want that stigma to disappear, it's going to take all of us to do that. Because the silence, the fear, the embarrassment, that's what keeps it alive and people know it. People are going to continue to judge us unless we stand up and say, no more. We have to stop hiding and staying in silent. Listen, we have nothing to be ashamed of. We did what millions of people do every single day. We had sex, that's it. The last time I checked, that wasn't a crime. But when someone gets herpes, or any STD for that matter, it gets treated like they messed up somehow, like they did something wrong or somehow deserved it. And people who did the exact same thing as us, but didn't get an STD, they walk around as if they're better than us. Like, it's okay for them to be intimate with someone, but not us. Like, we made some bad choice or something. Well, you know what? That's total BS, and hypocritical for that matter too. And for anyone out there saying that we should just keep our diagnosis to ourselves, that we shouldn't talk about it, I call BS on that too. Why? First, we have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Second, getting the word out there is very important because if we stay quiet, herpes will just keep on spreading. Again, according to the World Health Organization, 1 person out of 42 seconds is said to acquire a genital herpes infection, and that number just keeps rising. And this isn't because people are being reckless. This is because of the fear, judgment, rejection, and the emotional toll it causes. So people either don't get tested because they don't want to know because of the stigma, or they just avoid the conversation altogether and don't tell the other person they have it in hopes that the other person doesn't get it and to protect their secret, right? And that fear, that's the problem. That shame, that's also the problem. But talking about it, that's the solution. We should be openly talking about this and unapologetically with no fear, no shame, just real conversations. That's how we change the perception. That's how the stigma dies. And for the people who still want to judge us or shame us, you go right ahead. Because I don't allow someone else's opinion of me to define my self-worth. And neither should you. Well, that's all I have for today. If you liked today's episode, please like and subscribe to the channel. Also, I want to invite you to join our free online community by downloading the Herpes Wellness app. There you'll have free access to our forums where you can ask questions, seek advice, and help other members along their journeys. And for a limited time, anyone who signs up for the free support membership, we're going to upgrade you to the Connection membership, which includes access to a whole bunch of cool features, such as a listing in our member directory and member search, direct messaging with other members, a group and Love Connection chat lounge, member-led events, both virtual and in person, plus monthly live streams with me where we talk about everything herpes. Normally, this membership is $19 a month, but you're going to get this access for free for as long as you remain a member. And if you're wondering about privacy, we've got you totally covered. The app icon will actually say Age Wellness, so if someone happens to see your screen, you won't disclose your status unintentionally. So be sure to join us at Herpes Wellness. The link to download the app for both the App Store and Google Play is in the description box below. And if there are any herpes topics you would like for me to discuss on the show, please leave it in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you the next time on the Herpes Wellness Podcast. Bye for now.